melt when I'm ocean waves.
Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have the ultimate love and basketball couple, Coach Lee Towe and Daryl Towe. Daryl's recently produced a documentary, Who is Boo, about the great Boo Williams. Boo Williams is the AAU Virginia Hampton Roads legend who started a summer league down there that evolved into an amazing program that's produced so many great players. Daryl played for Boo and got this opportunity to produce a documentary. Guys, nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Absolutely.
Of course. Well, guys, so I know you guys have this great documentary, Love and a great podcast, Love and Basketball. You guys often are sitting there on the couch, just like you're sitting there right now, and just talking about life, raising kids, and how you chase the game. And then, I look up one day on Facebook, and Daryl, I guess you guys might have kept this a little bit low or whatever, but next thing I know, he's producing a documentary about Boo Williams, a guy that I know because when I was at UVA, he was bringing up AAU teams up there, and he was bringing up at the time Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, Brian Stith. He was just putting together what he would eventually build. He would build a Boo Williams facility and all the incredible things he did. I saw him at the very beginning, and he has touched so many lives, and you guys are involved in that. But anyway, let me give you guys your bio so people know exactly who you are. A lot of folks in Northern Virginia know who you are. Coach Lee, I know she went to Old Dominion. She had some injuries that kind of affected her basketball career. Was able to play semi-pro, and has gotten into coaching and chase the game. Along with Daryl, they have CTAB, which is cross-training athletics and into believing. Is that right?
Cross-training athletes into believers. Yep.
Yeah.
Into believers. Yeah. And it's a nonprofit to help develop these kids. Coach Lee was a head coach at Lewis High School in Springfield. Now is the coach at the legendary Woodson High School, great basketball program. And Daryl. So I know Daryl is a Hampton Roads baller, played for Boo Williams. The last time I saw him live is they were playing South Lakes in the state final. Along with against my friend Dustin Alenga and Duke Cooper. I knew all those players, but the game is legendary in Northern Virginia because we hadn't won a state championship from up here since '81, and South Lakes had a really strong team, and they came from 22 points down, and I think Dustin may have had a chance to tie or win at the buzzer, but you guys were able to prevail. Dustin always says that was the oldest looking high school team he's ever seen. But Coach, Daryl, do you know Dustin, and do you remember that game?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that game because he definitely almost hit the game-winning shot. We were so nervous because we was cruising. We was doing our thing, and next thing you know, we look up. Shoot, we only up by 10. Oh, we only up by 5. We only up by 1. Man, it was an exciting game though. It was very intense.
Yeah. Well, Daryl was a first team all-state player. Ended up in Norfolk State playing for the ultimate Nova legend, maybe the Boo Williams of Northern Virginia basketball. Will Jones coached at Robinson High School where I went to school. He was gone by the time I got there, but I had heard legend of him. He was the first black coach to coach a predominantly white school in Northern Virginia, maybe even DC and even Virginia. Not sure about that. Went to UDC, won a national championship there with a player named Earl Jones. And he ended up in Norfolk State where Daryl averaged 11, 12 points a game for coach. And then I think Daryl played his last year with another coach. I think Coach Freeman, Daryl?
Dwight Freeman.
Yeah, Dwight Freeman. And then Daryl played overseas some. And get the timeline right. When did you guys meet?
Well, the funny thing is, that's what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the state championship. We won state championship that same year. I was a freshman playing with Carol Lawson that year.
Oh, is that right?
We literally crossed paths in the tunnel and everything and never knew each other. Then 10 years later, when I was living in the 7-5, I was working for, I was a sports director for the JCC at that time. He came home and played in the leagues. I used to run the leagues all the time down in the 7-5. He came home and played, and that's how we ultimately met on the court, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Really? You went to West Springfield? I didn't know you were.
There you go. West Springfield. Man, West Springfield.
Yeah, I had no idea. So I probably officiated your games. You played for Coach Gibson.
For Gibson and now playing against him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. He's still coaching. Well, we definitely got to get into that. And I'm sure you learned a lot about ball from Coach Gibson and building great teams. But so anyway, you guys met, started CTAB. And then, as I was saying earlier, you guys have this great podcast, Love and Basketball, sitting there chatting about basketball and the game, your love of the game, raising your kids. And then I know Coach Lee did a great episode with some of the female coaches in the area, including Coach Lewis. I really enjoyed that. So I guess the first question I have is, how did you guys get from Love and Basketball podcast to on the red carpet at the premiere and producing the documentary "Who Is Boo" about the great Boo Williams?
It was all of a sudden, and I'll give you a quick story. Going back to doing things for CTAB, video marketing, branding for CTAB. That's what we had to do. It's me and Lee running the company, and then we got a couple of employees that work for us, but started doing videos like that. And then one day, I ended up going to the NBA draft. Ended up running into Spike Lee. And, he's walking, I'm walking in, he's walking past the metal detectors. And, a lot of times when celebrities walk past, they zoom, they beeline to where they're trying to go. This particular day when I saw him at the draft, he goes in front of me and he stops. Literally like 20 feet. So I'm like, all right, cool. That's one of my guys. Like, I love Spike Lee. I love the work he do for the culture or whatever. But at the time, mind you, I wasn't doing really no major video work, documentaries or nothing. So I'm the type person never really say anything to anybody unless I have something. So this particular day when he went, we dapped each other up. And it wasn't just like a dap up and go. It was like a dap up and we made eye contact. And it was a little bit weird because I'm thinking, oh, he must think I'm a player, NBA player or something like that or whatever. And I'm looking at him like, damn, that's Spike Lee. So I ain't say nothing or whatever. We had eye contact. We went about our business. 2 years later, I'm kind of kicking myself because I'm like, man, I should have said something to him. And I never did. So I'm thinking about that the whole time. And then, so I left it alone. So I'm going about my business, doing CTAB, Real Love and Basketball or whatever. And then this one day I see Coach, we over at the Sportsplex, and I see Coach Boo. And, at the Sportsplex is a green side and an orange side. So I'm coming out one side and Boo's coming out the other. And anytime I see Coach, we always speak. He'll ask about Lee. He'll ask about our son Christian, how everybody doing. That's how I've always been throughout the years. But this day, he's walking out and we make eye contact. It was so bizarre. We made eye contact. We don't say anything. And I instantly feel this feeling, the same feeling I felt when I met Spike Lee in the NBA draft. And then instantly God put it in me just to ask him about the documentary. Have anybody ever asked to do his? And he said, no. He said, are you talking about this? He asked one of his coaches to pull out a phone. He showed me a video. And it was a video like, 30 seconds long. And then another one was like 2 minutes. I said, nah, Coach, I'm talking about like a documentary we trying to pitch to Netflix. A real deal. Mind you, I never did no documentary. But I know it was a heck of a story there. And he said, let's set up a date, come meet next week. And went over there to meet for the meeting. He said yes. And then maybe like a couple of weeks later, was flying out to California to interview George Raveling.
Wow. Well, what is it about Boo Williams? Boo Williams was an insurance agent, successful guy. He got into basketball at a time. A lot of people make their living on training and coaching. There's a lot of folks that make their living around sports now. Back then, I think the times were a little bit different. Boo was taking on this project. I think he loved the game. He loved the kids. He loved the coach. I think he played at St. Joe's, and I think he played a little bit in the NBA. But what is it about Boo? I mean, growing up in Tidewater, he must be a very strong African-American role model for a guy who played for him.
I was going to say, coming from that area, it's so small. So they don't have a lot of stuff. Like out here where we're from, the DMV, there's tons of coaches. There's tons of programming. There's so many people doing so many different things. to add into the youth of our, community. Whereas down there, they don't have anybody who's doing anything like that on a consistent basis. So Boo just happened to come in it at the right time and able to build something that you see today. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it's just an area where if you got it, a lot of people just get it and they leave, the 757. And if you stay in it, it doesn't ever really build into anything. So he was just a necessary individual for that community, and he just stuck with it and did his thing to give back. So.
And one thing too, to piggyback off of that, Lee mentioned the perfect timing. He came in a time where it was fairly new. Timing is everything. That's what Boo said. He said, man, I got lucky. And then when you watch the doc, even Sonny Vicario said it. He said Boo got in the right time. 1988, when Jordan got signed to Nike, and Nike was looking for, youth programming, and Sonny Vicario was pushing that. And, Boo just had the tenacity and the mindset to write Sonny Vicario and invite him down to his banquet in the Hampton Roads area that he was doing yearly. Yeah. And Sonny knew about Alonzo because Alonzo was coming to the 5-star camps and different all-star games that Sonny was putting on, but it was just perfect timing. All of that was like right at the time when, Jordan was getting and everything was blowing up in Nike, and he ended up being the first Nike grassroots team ever.
Yeah. Daryl, were you guys close? Look, I know Boo has a lot of teams and he has a lot of coaches, but were you guys close? Do you know him really well, or do you know him as the great Boo Williams?
No, so playing for Coach is a type of person, and much like myself, we're very reserved. We cool, we'll talk, but we're very focused on what we're trying to accomplish, right? So we have kids in our program. Some are closer than others, and so we wasn't close like that. But I always respected him. I was respectful every time I see him. Hey, Coach, how you doing? I never really call him Boo. I still don't call him Boo. I call him Coach. Because it's a form of respect. This man is a legend, and when he see me, he asks about the kids, and that's all it was. But now it's like, should we get tight? Because I'm doing his story, and I think he understands and recognizes the grind that I'm putting in, and I'm serious about it. And he was talking about the other day in the premiere, which we'll put out tonight, the Q&A. But he was just talking about when players come to him, you got to kind of take it from a grain of salt. Right, you got to listen to it because that's your player, but that don't mean you got to do it. But one thing I know about Boo and Howard White and the guys he's surrounded with, the legends, they're about their business and they're serious about what they do. Hence, why they're at the level where they at.
Yeah. So, but so we still go from real love and basketball to a documentary. So how did you learn to do a documentary? I know you had some experience doing some PR for the marketing for your business, but it seems like a big jump. So how did you go to school on how to do a documentary? And what did you study, like filmmakers that do those that do films?
I went to school to just do it. Just trial and error. Like ever since, I got done playing ball, I just tried everything. I was doing videos for rappers. I was doing videos, for myself. I was trying to do Day in the Lives. I was trying to, anything that I was attached to, it was always visually something that I saw. And then I never been the type to just kind of wait on people. I would try it. And I knew it wasn't terrible because, I got a good vision, but all the technical stuff. So, even Lee, she get on me about like reading instructions and stuff like that. I don't read no instructions until I do it.
Until it breaks and then it comes back.
And then I come back, and that's how I get the understanding of it. If I just read something, I'm not gonna learn it that way. I have to actually do it. And then once I learn the foundation of it, then I will go back to the instructions or whatever it is, the tutorials. Then it clicks.
Well, I'll take it a step further. Being of faith, I believe it was divine purpose for him to be at this point because of when you think about his history. Like he said, he's legit. I mean, we've been together 13 years, married 10, and legit, he has touched and done everything under the sun to find purpose, right? And through that, it was like little things leading up to this moment. So like you said, way back before it was a Daryl Lee. He used to be in Atlanta in the rap game, and he would do videos. And then it was, once we got up here, it was, doing videos and content and highlights and Instagram posts and stuff through it with the camera. If you could see our studio area down here, like so much equipment, because over the years it was just trying and different. And so for me, that's the divine, you are building on little things, the little skill sets that ultimately are for your purpose. So now he has finally landed in what we truly feel is his purpose. And it was all those little nuances, them situations, the moments that built to this to get him to now he fully understands it. On top of, it was a lot of YouTube videos he was watching. It was a lot of questions that, he was blessed to be surrounded by people who've been in the industry, who was able to give him good tutorial and direction on where to go, and books and stuff like that. So it was a lot of that. But to be honest, it was just purpose. It was purpose driven, and it was truly divine for him to get to this point.
Well, I read when Daryl posted on Facebook, and he thanked you, Coach, for your support. And I would think your support would have to be tremendous, because in your job, at least with coaching, you don't get paid tons to coach high school basketball. So it's not like you have a lot of free time on your hands, and you had to really believe in him to take this kind of leap. And I read somewhere, Daryl, you're working 13 hours a day on this project. And so, if you do the math, you got to sleep 5 or 6 hours. There's not a whole lot of hours in the day left. So, Coach, you had to really believe in the project for him to do this.
Faith. Faith without works is dead, right? But then faith in your marriage, right? For us, we know that if we're not on accord and our eyes are not on who we believe in, our God, our focus, none of this is going to be able to manifest itself. So it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It was a lot of prayers. It was a lot of conversation. It was also surrounding ourselves around people who believed in us just as a married couple. So when those hard times did come, we were getting good, inspiring, nurturing advice to keep us locked in together as one, to be able to push through the moments on the outside, these projects and stuff like that, to get us to the other side. So it was just a lot of that. And just, I just want to see him win. I've always said that from day one. For me, all of it's great. But at the end of the day, if I know my husband won in something that he has desired to do for so long, I'm happy. That's all I cared about. And I believe he's made it. So,
Coach, did you have any creative input into the project? Did you give your opinion on things?
So I'm like the structural aspect of it, right? I can see vision. So I'm like, I see the vision. Okay, now how do you make it work? How does it make sense? What's the timeline? What's the monetary behind it? What's the schedule to do it? So that was more so my input. But then there was some, aesthetics, if like certain words he puts up or certain sound, I'd be like, I ain't like that. You know what I mean? But the actual creativity, like, that's him. So he is, in our relationship, he is the visionary. I'm the executioner. Like, I execute whatever's necessary. So that's just how we work. So.
But little does she know, she's a great storyteller. And one of my projects coming up next, which is going to be super big, I can't tell anybody yet, but wants her to kind of come on and help craft out the storyboards and stuff like that. And I've been telling her she can watch a movie and she can watch a movie and tell you exactly everything that happened precisely to a T. I can look at a movie and I get it, but I'm all in my head and I'm not going to be able to articulate it like that. On paper or a script or whatever, yes. But just to be like, oh, this person did that, and this is her friend, and they came over and they did this, and they flew here, and this is why they flew here, and then they're going, I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah. So she will be on one of the next coming projects as a producer.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Daryl, you're a mild-mannered guy. I can tell by talking to you. Was it ever intimidating when you're talking to Coach K? You're talking to, Sonny Vaccaro, JJ Redick, Roy Williams. You're talking to A-level people. And I remember, doing this podcast, I've had some really big guests on, and it's not always easy talking to people that you've seen on TV a million times. It could be a little intimidating. How did you deal with that?
Man, it's like a basketball game, man. You know, you get nervous. I quit this whole basketball is really like, because if you can, like that game with South Lakes, like that was adversity we went through, right? But we overcame it. We had to figure out a way. All right, turn the ball over a couple times, but you don't tuck your head. You just figure it out. You make another play. So that's how literally it was on set. In my mind, I'm like, I can't believe we're doing this and that. I can't believe this person. Like actually having a conversation with him. I'm talking about from like you said, Sonny to Don Staley to all these people. I think by the time I got to Alonzo Mourning.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah, I think by the time that I got to him, I was kind of like in a groove already. Okay, I can do this. I watched Mav Carter, how he interview, and and then what really got me was the guy from Black Panther that directed the Black Panther or whatever, and seeing how he talks. He's never like kind of conforming. He's being himself when he's talking and he's interviewing and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna be cool, but I am gonna be prepared. I'm gonna have questions, but at the same time, if I heard something spark, then I'll just go ahead and say it. And then by the time we got to Alonzo, I was like, yeah, I can do this, man. It's cool. So I don't care who it was in front of me. It is what it is, and I'm gonna feel comfortable doing it. But yes, to answer your question, it was nerve-wracking.
To an extent, though, because I mean, it goes back to when we talk about, our faith in divine. Like, you can't tell me that he's not walking in purpose when you talk about a small town kid from the 757, born in Norfolk, right?
Chesapeake or Norfolk? It's Norfolk or Chesapeake?
Norfolk. Born in Norfolk, that he is sitting at tables with Alonzo Mourning, with JJ Redick, with Gannon Baker, with Coach K, like just himself, not a whole bunch of people. Like, he was making calls. Blue would give him a number, make the call. Daryl would make the call and be connected. And that is nothing but divinity to me. Like, that's nothing but God, because who else can do that? Who else can pick up the phone right now and have Howard White on the phone or Alonzo Mourning? Like, and that's what I always told him. I would say, in his moments when he did, like he said, he would get nervous. I'd remind him, like, Daryl, who else is doing this? Name somebody right now that we talk to on a regular basis that can do this. Yo, you're covered. You're covered. You have a blessing over you. It's going to be fine. Like, now me on the other hand, and that's our difference. Put me in front of anybody. We talking. I'm talking to anybody. I don't care. The first time I think I've actually been a little bit intimidated was just this past weekend. We was with Jason Kidd, and I was like, "Girl, that's Jason. It's Jason Kidd. Like, it's Jason Kidd. Oh my gosh!" So we interviewed him, and it was cool. But I tell Daryl all the time, like, that you're walking in purpose. Like, anything you want at this moment, as long as God has ordained it and gave you the will, it's going to happen. So I have no doubt in what he can continue to do.
I'll give you one more too. One day I'm on set. So the Hall of Famer's mom, she was supposed to come on set. And normally we have a crew. I'm having, a crew 4 or 5 deep. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2. But this particular day, I'm by myself. Was it by myself?
I was with you.
Yeah. Lee was with me. I was thinking about Winnie Larry. But yeah, I was me and Lee, and I had to set up this whole thing. I'm talking about lights. I'm always being extra. So I love 2 cameras. Then I like a little slider with the effect going. Like, so I'm setting up all this stuff. And I'm like.
And I'm tossing cords.
Yeah.
I don't know what they use.
I was like, man, if we had a camera up there, they'd be like, man, go ahead and get them $1 billion because they really want it. But that day, I was like, man, this is.
And we're talking about a big time Hall of Famer too. So
setting up. So, just having to be prepared for all that stuff, the interview, ask questions, set up everything, and all that stuff. We definitely had help, but we didn't have a 40-man, 50-man crew. So
yeah.
Did you have investors, or did you have to float? I know you're floating your time. Do you have to float your money? Because I know this had to cost some money as well.
What?
Yeah, everything out of pocket. Everything out of pocket. My crew, they was tremendous help. They could have charged me, a boatload of money, but they seen the vision. They put their time and sweat equity into it. And literally, had, some of the flights. We have somebody in our program that'll say, hey, I got frequent flyer mileage, go ahead and, take that, 2 or 3 trips. So it was a lot of little stuff, man. Like I said, God really just threw me the alley-oop. And, you know, going through looking at the budget, if I really calculated it up, yeah, it's crazy.
Between everybody and him, and then the equipment and the travel and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely, it was a blessing. And CTAB really helped out too, because like you said, there was people in our program who knew us for a long time. We've been doing this for 10 years. So there has been so many people who has been like, listen, love the vision. We don't want nothing. We just want to help. What do you need? And that's literally how it's been like, oh, well, shoot, we need to go to Miami like tomorrow.
Now that you asked.
Right. And they'd be like, bet. And next thing you know, got an email. Oh, all right, cool. We can go do our thing with Alonzo Mourning or link up with Don Staley now. So it was literally just like that. So it was blessings for sure.
Well, in a way, you feel like, you know, you've given so much to kids over the years, and you never feel like you're always going to get things back directly. You feel like you pay it forward. You hope you get it back. Yeah. But it was nice, the nice things you guys have done, the work you've done to help people. And then we needed some help, some support on this project. It's nice to see that it came along. Now, I do believe, my guess is, you know, my sister writes, she writes novels and books and stuff. But one thing she learned about the business, and she's still struggling with it, this is her passion, is that the first one, you know, you kind of have to do on your own, and then you hope people see what you can do, and that's where the money comes once you do that first one. Is it kind of the same in producing documentaries?
It is. It's funny. Me and Boo was talking yesterday, and that was when we was calculating and, you know, trying to figure out what we're going to do and strategize. And that's one of the things he said. He said it's always tough doing the first one, right? Because you got to, you know, you prove yourself, and then you're just trying to figure it out. You know, even like the business side, who to bring in, you know, I can do this with executive producer and they pay money or investor here, like, you know, how to get distribution, how to edit, sound, all these different components, like literally in real time. So, you know, I'm like, shoot, the next one will be a breeze. I can cut my time down. You know, this one is what, year 3? I can cut my time down at least by a year and a half. Right, if I knew the information, but you have to go through that first one and legit do it by yourself, right? Most of you can do it by yourself, and I'm glad to do it, but just like everything else, I'm learning, but now I'm just learning the business side and a different industry or space, right, where I'm gonna be in for a long time. So to do it by yourself, now I can go to the next one. Okay, I need this person, and people that you already that's came on ladder in the project, they're gonna be on future. Spike Lee had the same DP, director of photography, sound guy, graphic guy for over 20 plus years. And these are people that was in the grind and the trenches with you early on who didn't want $1, but they have a tremendous talent. They had, you know, the time to put in, and they did it. And these are not no big name people. However, they crafty. So I'm elevating them. They on this journey as well. They meeting the same people I'm meeting, right? They're in the same rooms. Now we having conversations. Okay, this is how, because some of them are younger. Now, you know, how we teach athletes. I got to teach them. Okay, when you're around a celebrity, this is how you act. You can't get starstruck. You got to move a certain way and all these different type things.
So, I mean, you're building, you're using all kinds of all your abilities. You're thinking on the fly. You're creating stuff out of nothing, but you're also building a tremendous Rolodex along the way. Do you think most of your projects, and I know you got something secretive there, you don't have to give us any hints, but do you think most of your projects will revolve around basketball? Or do you think, you know, if I can do this and not know anything much about making movies, I can do anything?
I think it'd be about sports in general.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think sports, I love telling the underdog stories of sports, but also entrepreneurship. I don't want to get too caught up in sports, but that is like the vehicle right now where we at. Whatever, you know, God got for me later, is that I also been asked to do a basketball movie, not a documentary. So that's gonna be another task in itself, but up for the challenge. Yeah. But to answer your questions right now, I would say sports related, basketball related. Yes.
Well, if you ever want to do a short documentary on Will Jones. I would love to work with you on something like that. Something that doesn't have to be as ambitious as what you're doing, but I think Will Jones' story needs to be told because he was truly a trailblazer. And you have inside scoop on him because you played for him. And I mean, people up here, they just love Will Jones. A lot of people that he touched are beginning to pass. That was he was the coach of Robinson in 1976. I think he moved on. So it's been almost 50 years. So look, what about Boo Williams himself?
Before you move on, I gotta say something about Will.
Sure.
That's one of my biggest regrets. He told me who he was, and he showed me in a way. He was bringing in people like Pee Wee Kirkland, and he was just doing certain stuff. But Coach Will was like overly passionate. He was a OG. He was aggressive. He moved swaggy, and everything. I'm not saying I didn't believe him, but you know how some people tell you stuff, and you're so used to people just saying, "I do this" or "I can do that." He was one of the ones that really did what he said he did. Back then, I couldn't imagine somebody saying, "I did this and I won these championships," or "I know this person and I move like that," because I wasn't used to it. He told us every day almost that year. And then throughout the years after I left, I started growing up. I'm like, man, dang, he really was that dude. And then when he passed, I'm like, man, that's one of my biggest regrets. I should have really locked into and bought into what he was talking about.
Yeah, so I did a interview with Red Jenkins, legendary Woodson coach, and I did two parts. He was so amazing, and we spent a half hour just telling Will Jones stories because Red Jenkins is one of his best friends, and I mean he was one of the best players in Washington D.C. in the early '60s. I think almost NBA level. I don't know what happened, but he got into coaching. And when they opened Robinson, it was a brand new school. It was the biggest school in the East Coast. For a black man to get that job, and he did. He lived over in Maryland. He got the job.
So our debate has always been, we debate all the time who's better, Northern DMV, Northern Virginia area, or the 7-5, and it's always, and he swears we don't have nothing. He swears we have nothing.
I ain't say y'all don't have nothing
all the time.
But
It's constant. We are constantly all the time.
Argue with 757 people when they start talking their 757 stuff. You just got to move on.
Right.
They're all, I mean, Pernell Whitaker, Dwight Stevens, they will go on for an hour talking about 757.
Yes.
We know people up here that we've forgotten about, but they got it all down memorized. I mean,
right, exactly. That's exactly. You can't go to battle with it because you gotta be like, wait, let me Google first and tell you because I forgot some people.
They're gonna talk for an hour about 757, and you know. That's just getting started. You start talking about football and track and field, whatever. But look, this is Boo. This is Boo. Who was Boo's day? What was it about Boo Williams that made him so special? Now, like I said, I met him in the early days, and he had this incredible charisma about him. When he walk into the room, everybody would say, "That's Boo Williams." He just something about Boo was different. But you mentioned that it was great timing because Nike was just getting started. The Michael Jordan days were getting started, but it had to be more than that because I mean, that was the same for everyone. What made Boo Williams so special?
He didn't care if you was a elite athlete, McDonald's All-American. He didn't care who you were. He just cared if you worked and you did what he asked and brought into the system as a coach. Like I said, we had guys that was All-Americans or state player of the year like myself, and I'm averaging 18 points and 10 rebounds. But when I get to him, I'm coming off the bench and I'm getting in for defense, right? So he didn't care who you were. He gonna put the best five in there who's meshing at that time. He's gonna treat everybody fairly. If you ain't have nothing, off the court, if you ain't have nothing to eat or if you ain't have no shoes, he'd be the first one. Hey, come over to the office over at State Farm, come pick up some shoes. Right? Come over here, get some per diem, come get $20, go over to McDonald's. Like that wasn't, we didn't see that too often. Coming from a basketball coach and really doing it at a level of and greatness. And like I said, I think the main thing is just treating everybody the same, but just having a greatness mindset and really pushing forward to the dream that he wanted to do. He ain't quit, right? When he wanted to get a gym, he always he wanted to get a facility, but he had to start somewhere. He had to get the first basketball court outside.
He did everything without expectation too.
Yeah.
He did it because it was the right thing to do, and he just did it without expectation. And when we drop the Q&A later, he'll expound on that a little bit about how he feels, and he'll let everybody know y'all owe me some money for real, but he's just genuinely just low key. Like you said, he's an introvert for the most part, very quiet, very mild mannered. Of course, until you get him to coach. But just one-on-one conversation, he's like the big teddy bear, just real cool and funny. That's a funny dude. Like he's a funny dude. So
comedian.
Is he a basketball visionary? I mean, is he an X and O's guy? Does he really understand the game well, or is it with him? It's a matter of understanding talent and developing talent and inspiring kids.
I think he just eat, sleep, dream basketball. When he was 10 years old, he was, creating things. And this is in a documentary. He was creating things, out of little toys and stuff like that. When he was younger, he was seeing that vision back then when he was 10 years old. You see in the documentary, or you can see him and Peach Jam, him and his sister game planning and making plays and, what works best in the zone. And, also too, if you have a coach that has an opinion or has a way to stop, this shooter from shooting, or he listened to advice. If it's the right advice, he's gonna listen to it. He ain't gonna listen to anything. But if it makes sense, all right, you go ahead and do that. You better at that. You go ahead and, figuring it out. I think that's a leader, right? He don't have to always be in the front. Whatever is the best for the overall brand and to win at life and in sports. That's what he gonna run with. And Lee mentioned he don't want anything. This is the other piece too is what people got to understand is relationships. Like too many people are transactional. They look at the money. Where can he can ask any of them Hall of Famers or whatever for, $2 million or whatever, or tickets or whatever. He don't. Even on this project, I'm like, man, call Phil Knight, man. That's your guy. He'll answer the phone. Right. But he protects his relationships, but he'll still, if it makes sense, he'll do certain things. But that's what a lot of people got to understand is to protect the relationships, right?
Yeah. Well, in the early days of AAU, I guess around the mid '80s, there was a guy named Tony Squires in Richmond, and there was a Richmond Gold, and Boo was coming up in the Tidewater area. It wasn't a given that Boo Williams was the best AAU at that time. He was just building. And Tony Squires had some monsters in Richmond, and so did Richmond Gold. And after a while, Boo Williams just kind of inundated the whole state. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing tryout, notices like in Charlottesville or like hundreds of miles away. It wasn't just a Tidewater thing anymore. Do you know of any? Did he ever have any competition that was threatening him, or? As soon as that ball got rolling, was he, pretty much in charge of Virginia AAU?
He was.
Yeah, I think
he came in such an early time.
Yeah,
it was like one of the first ones to really, really get it. And then, like you said, he had talent. So once the talent, and once he got on the platform, and then once he got picked up, and he was very, very consistent in what he was doing, I don't think anybody at that time, there was nobody who could really step foot with him. Now you look at it. There's a couple of programs out here that can give him a run for his money, but again, you talk about the consistency that he's had, and you just talk about his legacy that he's built before. Now he's always going to have that GOAT factor when it comes to AAU. He's always going to be the greatest one, regardless of all the other programs coming up now around him. So I just think it was just this timing. Nobody else was doing what he was doing down here.
Right.
I'm sorry, Daryl, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go first.
Yeah, I was just saying the transition, you're talking about 40 years of greatness. So he's a guy who always kind of, keeping up with the trends that's going on. He may not be doing it physically or whatever, but he keeps, somebody around him that can, transcend the time. Some people get stuck and, okay, they done made a splash, but then they just stop right in and they can't go take it beyond.
Yeah.
He keeps taking things beyond his while. Like every time we doing something now, he is at the World Basketball Festival down in Nike, down at
New York.
In New York.
And Lincoln Center.
Lincoln Center with a Nike Tech suit on. Right? Like, man, you all fly with the skinny joggers on and everything. You know, he's not the guy to say, oh, I can't do this. I got to stay with Splendors because that's what we did back then. No, he's always transcendent.
I mean, he has that old school mentality, right? He is the same age as my father. So when I see him and I hear the stories about, old school, they get up at 7:30, they don't go to bed till 1:00 again in the morning, and then they do it all over again. And they're constantly just moving and constantly building and constantly continuing to put food on the table. Like, it's that old school mentality. Literally, that's my own father. My father is literally the same way, right? They just work, and they make sure everybody's taken care of, and they lock in and they build, and then they give themselves 2-3 hours of rest, and then they keep going. So, and that is Boo. That is what he does. So, I mean, with that type of work ethic, with that type of mentality, and then like his quote, and I'm stealing this for the rest of my life. His biggest thing is, he says, anybody could put an effort with anything, but it's the results that matter. You can put effort into anything, but if you ain't got no results, you're not doing nothing, right? Period. So that's him. He's not putting effort into nothing if he know he ain't gonna get no results from it. And as long as he's getting results, he's going to continue to work. So he's going to continue to do this until the Lord tells him to sit down, straight up. So I don't ever see him stopping no time soon, for real.
And as you guys build your portfolio around basketball, does he inspire you guys the way that, I'm sure he was very successful as an insurance agent, and basketball wasn't really a way to make a lot of money back then. But now with the sponsors and Nike and stuff, I'm sure Boo's done incredibly well for himself. Does he inspire you guys financially and as you build your portfolio?
Yeah. I mean, we're doing exactly what he's doing. And he took off in year 10, and Lord willing, we're in year 10. So prayerfully we take off too. But it's just, I mean, I think one thing that people miss too is he was building the business, but he also was still working. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's a balance that a lot of people don't get, or a lot of people don't want to do. They want to just do their thing and then that's it. So I commend him. I mean, that for me personally alone, that's an amazing feat to be able to say, I'm still working my 9 to 5, but I'm building this empire on the background, to ensure that everything's being handled as necessary. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's super dope.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, this has been great. So Coach Towe, I want to talk a little bit about your coaching and a little bit about your background. I found out today that you played for Coach Gibson and you went to West Springfield. I thought you both were 757 people. I didn't realize that it's a kind of a mixed marriage here, so to speak.
No.
You'll never hear the end of that. So anyway, I want to hear about how you got started in basketball, and a little bit about maybe playing for Coach, and a little bit about your coaching career. You made a big move, I think last year, the year before, from Lewis to Woodson, one of the most high-profile jobs in the area. So let's talk about your career a little bit.
So basketball, I actually started late. I got into it about like 9 to 10 years old. And then my father has coached my entire life, from my siblings, and then myself when I started playing and that was pretty much the start. I really wasn't into it, but then once I started, I fell in love with the game and I just took off, and literally I used to play for Aggie for Fairfax Stars. I got into AAU. I was killing the game for a long time. I got letters super early in my career, 7th and 8th grade, started getting looks and stuff like that at camps and all that kind of stuff. We used to go to UNC all the time. But then in 98, early 97, 96, I tore my ACL, my right one first. And it was crazy because it was going into my high school year, what to do at that point. And it was ACL tears was brand new back then. It was like what is this? How do we do? So my father actually my parents flew me out to Purdue to get my surgery done, to get me back fast. I was in surgery and then I was in rehab 2 hours after surgery to get me back to my athletic abilities. I actually had a turnaround of about 4 months or so, 4.5 months, enough to make it to high school tryouts, which at that point was Gibson. And Gibson and all them knew who I was before, because I used to come to their summer camps and I would win all the stuff at summer camp. So I was supposed to have a very big career before I got hurt. But then once I got into high school, Gibson picked me up and kept me on varsity. It was still battling with the injury, but did as much as I could. And then, so I had the ability to be with Kara and be around the team, and we won states my freshman year. And then just kept playing throughout that time. And again, by my senior year, trying to get recruited and stuff, tore my ACL again. So a lot of people that I did have on my recruiting list, dropped me because now you have a kid with 2 torn ACLs essentially. But I still got picked up, and I ended up signing at Catawba College and playing there for 2 years before transferring to ODU. So background, that was the gist of it. For me, I learned a lot more from my father than anybody else in my life. He taught me the ins and outs of the game. He taught me, how to coach the game by default, just watching him and how he interacted and how he grew, just the details and the strength and the mindset. I really got a lot from my dad. Gibson, on the flip side, just taught me Gibson was actually, and Gibson, I know you're going to see this, but Gibson was my first real yeller. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my dad, when he would get pissed about something, it was he's very, very melancholy and real chill, but you'll know he was tight because he'll get real close to you and say what he got to say. And then you like, all right, Gibson will get close to you and let the whole world know what he's got to tell you. So that was my first take on, okay, this is different. But it gave me once you got through it, it was like, oh, you can play. If you could play for him, you could play for anybody, to be honest. Because then moving into college, my college coach was literally the same thing. And a lot of kids who came in was like, yo, what is this? And I'm like, oh, you should have came to my high school. Like, this ain't nothing new to me, right? But Gibson was seeing him, and then also being around Kara and being around that crew. It was just learning the ins and outs of the game, learning what it takes to get to that next level, learning what it looks like to be elite. Because when you're playing with Kara, we had cameras at our game every single home game almost, because and it'd be packed, baseline packed, everybody. So living in that era was very different, very different, but a really cool learning experience to see what it looks like at that level. So then fast forward, transferred to ODU, ended up playing, for their little travel intramural squads where you would go and play up and down the East Coast to JMU, to, Elizabeth City, all different kinds of things. And then I got picked up semi-pro wise, played semi-pro 2 years, met him, and the rest was history from there. So that's the background of me playing. As for coaching, summer camps, any summer camp I would go to, I picked up so much stuff just in summer camps, learning from different coaches and stuff. And then when I would come home, a couple of my family was very much embedded into BRYC and stuff. So they would ask me, summertime to help coach or help run camps. I would come help camps, stuff like that. And so that's kind of how I got into coaching, sort of. It wasn't really something that I really wanted to do. But then when I met Daryl, and Daryl, like I said, was the visionary. He was the one who came up with CTAB. Again, I executed CTAB. And that was where coaching really took off, when we were just training and building individuals. And then I really have a heart of serving. Whatever I can do to serve and to help somebody is what I love. I love to give back. I love to help. I love to assist anybody in any way possible. So coaching gave me that opportunity, and that's pretty much where everything went from there.
Well, and Daryl, are you involved in Coach Lee's coaching? Would you give your opinion of players that you like and may not like so much, or do you let her just kind of do her thing?
For the most part, I let her do her thing, but it's certain stuff that I might see, and I let her know. But we have coaching wise, we both very strong and opinionated and stuff like that. So sometimes we kind of let the other person do their thing. But for the most part, yeah, if I see something like a player, I make my suggestions and recommendations. But for the most part, I let her do her thing.
Well, when CTAB started, our first AAU team was boys, and it was just the two of us. I love coaching boys, but it's the two of us on the same team coaching a group of boys. And already, males have this thing. I naturally stand up and coach for him. That used to be the first arguments early in our years. Who said you could stand up? Why can't I stand up? And I'm like, why does it matter? If it's that big of a deal, you stand up then. But then like I'm still coaching and being loud. And so like our first 2 seasons, we was like, all right, man, that's how the CTAB AAU girl side started. Cause I was like, we don't need to do this, or we are gonna have worse stuff in our household. So that's what happened, and that's how we split up and went to the girl side. But then just through that, just understanding this game and development. I mean, today's day and age is very different from how I grew up here. You know, that's our argument for the 7-5. Like he came up here and he got embedded with a bunch of different kids that's very different from the kids that are down, you know, in the 7-5-7. And even for me, this new generation is very different from how I grew up. We were gritty. We were one of the highest ranked recruited areas in the country back when we played, you know, back when I played. And now it's saturated, right? You got the private schools that got most of the talent. You got a lot of kids that are here and there. And it's just a softer generation, to be honest. So when we came up here with these girls, I hated going to the girls' games and seeing girls just playing so nice. So through training, I was like, listen, we need to build up some tough girls, because they got it, but they just need the right person who can push them in love. You know what I mean? In the right environment. So that's how my real coaching career started, because through that, girls would come and want to train with us and train with me. And then people were like, hey, we need you to start coaching an AAU team. So again, because we didn't need to coach together, the girls AAU started. And then through that, literally, I never applied for any coaching job, literally had a phone call. Somebody was like, hey, we know what you're doing. We love what you're doing. You should come over to this school because they have an opening. I think you'd be great at it. And that was Robert E. Lee at the time. And it was funny when the call came, because we had already been asked to have a speaking engagement there to talk to their, it was like their leadership class about being entrepreneurs and all that kind of stuff. So the timing, again, we talk about divinity, right? We talk about what God just sets open, doors that he opens. Timing was perfect. So went and had this huge conversation, and their AD at the time was like, I need you to come coach for us. And I was like, do I want to do a high school out here? I mean, it'll be cool, but you know, I think our son was 3 or 4 at the time. And so I was like, I have a baby, I have a business. Like, I don't know if adding this is going to work. And she was like, listen, I'll give you to after spring break, whatever you need to make it work. We got you, like, for real. And so went through spring break, and Daryl was like, yo, why not? Like, might as well take advantage and see what happens. And so we did, and that was just the takeoff from there.
How tough was it to go to Woodson? Now, Lewis, and I'm friends with John Millward, the soccer coach, and he's finally had success at Lewis after many years. But sometimes when you have schools with a very high population of certain immigrant groups, they might be tremendous athletes, but their family may not value extracurriculars like American families can. So sometimes it's not the easiest thing in the world place to coach, even though you are having an impact on the kids. There's no doubt about that. And I know that's important to you. But Woodson gives you a better chance to have teams, that are going to be strong. But how tough was it for you to go to Woodson? Because I know, I'm a loyal guy, and it's always hard to walk away from kids. Even if you're not, when it's tough, you put your heart and soul, into it, and then. But sometimes, as a career, you have to try a new school, a new situation. Was it tough to go to Woodson for you?
It was a conversation. It was a lot of conversations, because again, this was somebody called and was like, hey, I just put your name in, you need to go try out for the spot. And it was funny because it was kind of in the season. I loved Lewis. I loved my AD. I loved our whole crew over there was cool. I loved those kids. But if I was being honest with myself, it like you said, it's a school at basketball wise, it was going to be a school that was going to be very, very, very hard to have any true success. Out of my 5 years there, I had one true winning season, which again, I think should have been elevated and celebrated way more than it did. But it was like the first time we had a over 500 win in 10 years. And so I think the Springfield newsletter wrote something about it, but it was, but then from there, all those great kids I had, they were all graduating anyway. So it's a tough school. So I was in the season, do I stay here and continue to at least develop good kids? Because again, in that type of environment, for competitive coaches like myself, you had to switch perspective. It's not about the wins no more. It's about winning. Do they graduate? It's about, are they building tools to be successful adults and to prepare for their future? So that was the perspective. But now go back to the competitive side. I want to win. Y'all got me at this high school, like on this platform.
I'm not making all that much money. That's not what
right. So yeah, so when Woodson came about, it was a conversation I had with the person who referred me, and then with him, and I was like, do I leave? Like, I got roots. I got roots here. I got people who care. Like, I got these 2 kids that just came in. Like, do I leave or do I, just try something new? And he was like, listen,
gotta go. It's time to go. So
actually the first time I had an opportunity to leave beforehand and I didn't take it. So when this came around the second time, he said, this is the second time you've talked about going to a better opportunity and to coach it with some better kids. If you don't do it this time, then it's on you. Just remember that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, and went in there and moved over.
Well, Coach, I know you felt like you might not have got your due for that winning record at Lewis, but you have a very good reputation in the basketball circles. So maybe the press doesn't get it all right, but at least your peers respect you. Last question about your basketball, and you guys touch on this on your podcast, and in particular the one where you had the female coaches. How important is it to you to be a Black woman role model coaching in Northern Virginia? How does that influence your coaching? How important is that to you?
It's huge to me because I never had it growing up. Like, never had it. And to be in this environment now that we're living in with these kids, it's they need to understand differences. Women need to be celebrated more, especially in this game. Like, and we'll talk about real quick when we went to the World Festival. You're talking about the elite of the elite athlete females that were at these games, and every single one of them was coached by a dude. Mm-hmm. And it was like, there gotta be some good female coaches who can sit at this platform, at this level, and coach these phenomenal young ladies. Why are we not reaching out and doing more and allowing us to have these opportunities as well? So being here in Northern Virginia, I mean, and let's be honest, going to Woodson, I'm the first Black basketball female coach that they've ever had. You know what I mean? The last time they had a female coach was 19 years ago.
Cheryl Thompson.
Yes. So I took it with pride. I want our girls to understand, just as a female, you can do this too. We are strong. We can be successful. We can be in any other environment. But then as a Black female, like, you don't have to just be with a certain color, certain group, certain anything. You can do anything that you put your mind to. And if you believe in what God has called you to do, anything is possible. So I just stand on that, and I stand on it proud, because I just want to be looking like me, being different. We can do anything, and you can be, like you said, I'm thankful for the comment that you talked about being respected. You can be respected by everybody by doing you. You know what I mean? So that's what I want to just portray to our young ladies and our young fellas. But
no, the young fellas need to see it as well. They need to see the leadership from a Black woman as well. Daryl, do you think, I know you have big plans, big goals for film. Do you see yourself always being involved in basketball in terms of coaching and training, or do you think you'll probably spend more time behind the camera?
That's a good question.
Can I ask for permission?
No, I think I'll always be involved in it because that's our business. But at the same time, I think at this point, kind of looking at how can we elevate to another level. To be honest with you, everybody's kind of doing in this space of basketball training or AAU basketball and stuff like that. So I think I'm kind of trying to set a tone for CTAB to get us to a elevated place where, some of these other organizations who are kind of ahead right now and put us in a position of them and backdoor our way to where we're trying to go, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
it'll always be in the basketball environment, but the film is is putting us in a very, very interesting and unique spot.
Yeah, I think it's just how to continuing with CTAB being what makes us different from everybody else. And we have a lot of stuff that makes us very different from everybody else. Again, we don't have the sponsorships and stuff yet, but what we do and how we do it, and we're authentic and we're genuine, and we truly care. We're not here. If we were here for the money, we would have stopped a long time ago. You know what I mean? So I think that's just what keeps us in it and keeps us involved and keeps us flourishing, is the fact that we're just doing things differently and we're doing it truthfully and loyal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of my favorite point guards in Northern Virginia history, Corin Turner, I know has been involved with you. He's just, that boy was a fighter. He was a really scrappy player at a golden age of Northern Virginia basketball. We had so many good teams and crowded gyms and stuff. So, but anyway, guys, look, you guys are an inspiration. I mean, what you guys are doing is amazing. I've been following you guys from afar. Glad we got a chance to do this. I'm glad you guys came on and told me about some of your vision and some of the things you've done. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. I just know you guys are going to continue to do great things. So hopefully we can keep in touch. Daryl, if you ever want to do anything about Will Jones, I'm all ears, because I know so many people that know stories about him. I think we could have a good time with that without being too ambitious. But,
we'll definitely be in contact for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. So anyway, guys, look, again, best of luck with all your projects, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We appreciate
it. Thanks for having us.
Of course, guys. We'll talk soon.